What's up, everyone? Phreak here. Welcome to patch 9.23. It is time for preseason 2020, and I am very, very excited for what's in this patch. It is absolutely awesome. I love it. This is wonderful. Quick aside, I am not doing a TFT patch run out if you're looking for that one, so that's not happening. Maybe sometime in the future, but I haven't been super active in TFT. I don't feel like I have a firm grasp on that game, so that's my quick aside there. But League of Legends, whew, all right, so 923 is preseason. Let's get into the actual changes in the gameplay stuff. All right, so Elemental Rifts. This will probably happen in, I would say, like 95% of games, okay? Once two drakes are killed, once two drakes are killed, there's a third unique elemental drake that spawns and it reshapes the map itself. Now, it's not super massive, but it is impactful. It's probably about as impactful as the blast plant honey fruit scryer's bloom changes from a few seasons ago. It's moderately impactful. It will change how you play around the map, and these are going to spawn and affect the map in almost every game you play. Okay, so a few things to point out. The first three drakes are all unique, right? Cloud, Ocean, Infernal, Cloud, Infernal, Mountain. Like whatever the setup is going to be, they're going to be three unique drakes. As soon as it counts the third drake, once it realizes what that third drake is, that is when the rift changes shape, and every drake then onwards, from number 3, 4, 5, etc., with an asterisk, is going to be that element, right? So if it goes Ocean, Infernal, Mountain, it will only spawn Mountain drakes for the rest of the game. And stack, 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 stack. And the map will be a mountain map, right? So we're in a mountain map with only mountain drakes. Okay, I'm reiterating, but I want to make sure this is very clear because this is one of the big points of confusion that I saw on the Reddit comments. So if Drake 3 to Infinity is Infernal, you have an Infernal Rift, which looks like this, which is pretty cool looking over there as we try to close out. This is what it looks like in the map itself. It burns off some of the brush. It opens up the pit so you can run through red and blue buff a little bit. Similar stuff with Mountain. It spawns some extra terrain up here in the top right and bottom left of red buff and on from there, as well as some extra stuff you can see in front of the pit. For Ocean Drake, it's similar. You're going to see more brush spawn right inside the pit. More brush spawns inside the jungle here as well, growing the patches and whatnot. Cloud Rift actually spawns a big AoE move speed buff around red and blue buff. So, okay, they do a little bit of changes, and specifically, right, it's the pit itself changes, and the areas around the buff camps change. So the lanes aren't affected, the river is only a little affected, the other parts of the jungle, like over at Krugs or Gromp, like exactly in those camps aren't affected. So from minute, I mean, at the earliest 10 minutes, if you kill every Drake on spawn, but more realistically, 15 to 20 is I think, more likely. You're going to see those effects happen. So, okay, cool. The map is changing. That's interesting. The changes are fairly small. If you watch some of the, teaser videos, it's like, well, look at Rengar using the brush, look at Camille using the terrain. Like, that stuff is going to exist, and it's going to be real, and it's going to, have an effect on the gameplay. But to me, this feels, on the outside looking in, more cool than gameplay impacting. I think it is going to be cool. I think this is actually very interesting. I like this. I think it's a cool idea. I think it's executed well. I think you're still playing League of Legends. I don't think it's such a big departure that the game is hugely different. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a positive. So, all right, I'm on board. Let's move along. Top and bot lane are getting Alcoves. I like this change as well. Now, I have not play tested this version of the map with the Alcoves. I know a few years ago they had tested top lane, actually, sorry, many years ago, they tested top lane Alcoves with Magma Chamber when they were going to make that 5v5 map. I had play tested that map. And part of that change was, hey, 1v1 is kind of an island. Let's add, and it was actually at the time it had a jungle camp in it. If you could shove the lane, you'd go take the top lane jungle camp to cement your lead. You'd spend some health and mana to gain more golden XP. Now it's just an alcove, no jungle camp, and 8 years later or whatever. But there's a tidbit from 2012 or something. I had played that map. Anyway, I think the alcoves are interesting. To get back on topic of Summoner's Rift, I think the alcoves are interesting. I think it creates more gank paths. What it really means is the middle brush is like by far the most important thing to ward. I'm gonna say because that's kind of the best way to track the opposing jungler sneaking in or the opposing lane. Imagine you're a blue side top laner, right? We're not gonna full screen. So imagine you're a blue side top laner, so you're playing down here, and you ward the top right brush to watch for a lane gank from the opposing jungler. Well, that means that the red side top laner can push you in and then just hide in the alcove or even sneak in and hide in the middle brush, which you already knew was kind of possible, right? Like people could always, I think, get into the middle brush as it was, but like warding for the lane gank means that they can do this kind of stuff. If you do this, they can't hide in the alcove, right? If you ward this brush, they can't hide in the alcove, and you tend to watch lane ganks. So for everyone playing ranked, especially in bot lane where you haven't had to use 3 brushes before, the middle brush is the really big one for watching ganks come in. And then you have to worry about, them sitting in the forward brush and pushing you. So it creates all kinds of fun mind games. It's going to be different playing bot lane. It's going to be a little bit less different playing top lane. But I like these changes. I think it's cool stuff. I think it's good changes. I like adding sort of more variance in how the lane plays out. And it's not adding variance in terms of randomness. It's adding variance in terms of hidden information. I think League is a game that works well with hidden information. So I think it's really cool. Next up, River Entrance Brush. New brush patches near the blue buff ramps. Right, so right here and on the other side right there, as you can see. This seems pretty useful as well. Certainly invading blue buff was the easier buff to invade. I didn't mind that, really. I thought it was fine that it was pretty easy to be aggressive and invade blue buff. My instinct is this brush makes defending better, but I'm not sure that's really true. I'm not completely certain yet. It's certainly an obvious ward to put down when you're defending. Like if, let's say I'm red side bot lane and we're getting pushed in, I'm going to run to Tri-Brush instead of warding over this wall right here. I'm probably going to walk up and ward over this brush right here instead. It still tracks most of the same things, but putting a ward inside a brush is more valuable. So it means defensive warding takes a little bit longer. But also keep in mind that like if we saw, blue side top laners, they would come down and they would ward over the wall and they would ward here to see if people are going to camp against them. Now, if you ward here, there's a pretty decent chance a trinket ward can't see from the very top to the very top up here. There's a decent chance that a trinket ward cannot see someone hiding north of the blast plant, which means you can go for like a jungle roam, come through, go up, and then hide, and they're not certain if you've recalled or not because the ward has to go farther down. Yeah, sure, you could have always jumped into Tri-Brush and done this. That was always a possibility, but there's just sort of more hiding spots, which I feel like that's some degree of valuable. And also, I'm not sure if it's possible to break this sightline. I think if they place the word badly, like if it's like right here, you have like a bad sightline and maybe you can sneak in somehow. It just means you really have to ward this brush. I also, by the way, in general, really, I would say I like sort of obvious direction in map artifacts. So I will use a Counter-Strike example first. Map makers in Counter-Strike will often put like assets outside of playable space. They'll put a sign on the top of a wall well above head height, which you can use to line up a smoke grenade. And so similarly with League of Legends, it's like, hey, here's this brush, put a ward in it. I think that's good. That's like, hey, it's like a little bit of a handhold to say, hey, put your stuff here. This is where your vision should go. Here's where you can line up your stuff. This feels like a pretty good ward spot. It watches most of these routes pretty well. I tend to like this ward spot. It's probably a pretty good control ward spot overall. It tracks us out getting killed as easily. It means that if like a LeBlanc or a Cassiopeia runs into the jungle, they don't know they're seen. They have to walk into the brush to do it. They're now in range of a Darius pull. This does have some anti-aggression power. I think this brush is probably better on defense than offense. Ultimately is what this comes down to. And, I think offense should continually be prioritized here in League of Legends. But I also don't hate it from the idea of like a teaching standpoint. Okay. Spent a long time on one brush, but I think it's important. Okay. There's a new global buff in the game, right? So we already had Baron Nashor, we already had Elder Dragon. There is a new team-wide global buff, and it's a Dragon Soul. So a Dragon Soul goes to the first team to slay 4 elemental drakes. This means you take Mountain, Cloud, Ocean, Ocean, or your opponent takes Mountain, you take Cloud, and then take Ocean, 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 or your opponent takes Mountain and Cloud, and the first Ocean, and then you take Ocean, 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 right? So it's anywhere between 4 and 7 drakes into the game, meaning It can be taken as early as 20 minutes. If you kill things on spawn, it can take 35. We're probably looking at 30 plus minutes into the game. And just think back to like any of your favorite pro games and say, hey, how often did a team get 4 elemental drakes picked up? It was sometimes, and it was pretty frequent. I would say probably about half of pro games had 4 elemental drakes in them. I don't know if that's absolutely true, but that's roughly accurate, I think. So the first team to get 4 elemental drakes gets the dragon's soul. It's worth pointing out that the dragon's soul, the element of that soul, is always deterministic, because it's always the 4th drake, well, 3rd plus drake to spawn, right? Mountain, ocean, cloud. You can't get the soul before cloud, 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 cloud. So, like, in that game, no matter who gets the soul, that soul is always cloud. Whether you killed the first 2 drakes, your opponent killed the first 2 drakes, you split them, doesn't matter. It was always going to be a cloud drake this game. That was going to be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, just sort of worth noting, right, that, like, okay, FYI, it means we're right. The map is going to be a cloud, infinite drake spawn is going to be a cloud, and the dragon's soul was going to be cloud, which means your soul always matches the map, which we also know. But okay, once a team takes the dragon's soul, which can be as early as 20 minutes, realistically in the 30 to 35 to maybe even 40 range, so we're not going to get every single game. Now Elder Dragon can spawn. Regular drakes have a 5-minute spawn, Elder Dragon has a 6-minute spawn. So the earliest possible Elder Dragon is 26 minutes into the game. We'll talk about that later. But okay, so just kind of keeping our minds in the same spot. How do Dragon Souls work? Theoretically, at 20 minutes you can have a Dragon Soul. Dragon Souls, though, are permanent, like the Elemental Drake buffs, and it persists forever. And the Souls are essentially Dragon Plus, right? It's a very, very good Dragon buff. So if you get... If it's an Infernal map, the first team to get 4 Drake kills gets the Infernal Soul, which is essentially AoE Sheen. And it's not a ton of damage, it's 90 damage. And if you think about like a 3-item AD carry, they have about 100 bonus attack damage. So it's 115 damage, which is still roughly Sheen, right? Now it's an AoE Sheen, or you can consider it, Luden's Echo, similar range. Infernal Soul is basically everyone gets roughly a Luden's Echo, or roughly a Sheen on a, 3-second cooldown. That's pretty good. It is not I win the game good, but it's pretty good. Also, definitively, you must have at least 2 Infernal Drakes for this to be yours. Because you had to kill 4 Drakes, and the first 2 weren't Infernal, and from then on they were. So anytime you see Infernal Drake, it means you also always had to kill at least 2 Infernal Drakes yourself. Meaning you had to have at least 10% bonus AD and AP, which feeds into this slightly. But it's really worth pointing out that, like, look at the tuning here. Look how much AP it takes to get to back to this. What, 600? It takes 600 AP to get to 90 damage. Yeah, I mean, that can happen, and for Vhagar it probably will, but if you have 600 AP Vhagar, do you really care that your 90 damage explosion became 180? I mean, it matters, but, like, this is pretty flat, is what I'm saying, right? That the damage is generally pretty flat here, which I think is a positive, because it means that your Janna support or your, Nautilus jungle or, Scion top lane without a lot of bonus stats gets to actually have a pretty decent Infernal Soul, which is a good thing. I don't want, we have a bunch of tanks and supports, unlucky it's an Infernal map. It's like, well, no. This is actually going to be pretty solid, so that's a good thing. I like that a lot. Next up is Mountain Soul. Mountain Soul is a 225-point shield, which, is pretty solid. It's about a 10% bonus health to the average champion. Now, most champs hit about 2,000 health at level 18, or a bit more if they're tankier. And then, of course, look at any tank support, any tank overall, they're going to have a lot more HP on them. So, that's where we get to the actual 10% mark. But, also, again, you can get the Mountain Soul as early as like 21 minutes into the game, which, that's a lot of essentially health very early on. Baron spawns, and we've all got 225 more HP. And again, the ratio is fairly low. It's actually an even lower attack damage ratio, the same AP ratio. There's even a bonus health ratio, by the way, over here. But, again, this is going to be of fairly minor use. For obviously a higher bonus health ratio, because it's meant for, there is still tuning that makes it, sort of a little bit better for the, the tanky ones. But again, if you have 1,000 bonus HP, you haven't doubled it yet. You have to get like 1,500 bonus health, which like is reachable, but is a lot of bonus health to get to the, doubling the shield power. It's not likely to happen, and that's fine. That's completely reasonable. I don't care. I like that it's mostly front-loaded. Like, it's totally reasonable to do. What about the Ocean Soul? Ah, you get massive regen when you damage enemies. And you can, you heal over 3 seconds. And dealing damage, it seems like there's no cooldown, right? So you're just constantly regenning, 60 health per second, which is a lot of health regen, right? You're getting 60 health per second. This deals 30 damage per second. So it's, half as good or twice as good based on your logic over here. All right, and the scaling, about twice as good, right? About twice as good. The regen, right? More than twice as good for the health side. As far as the regen's concerned, right? Depends how long the fight is. This is, 180 health over 3 seconds or 60 health per second. So in 4 seconds, it's as good as Mountain Soul. So long as you're not getting one shot, Ocean Soul is generally more regen. But keep in mind that's only in PvP combat. If you hit minis or monsters, you're only getting, 54 health roughly. Right, not nearly as good. But still a lot of regen. You're gonna really sustain up off this. And of course it's, very good as a poke team. It's pretty good against a poke team. You can land some kind of skill shot. This is power up. This is quite nice. Again, very impactful soul. It does not instantly win the game power, but it is a lot of power. It's 60 health per second. That's meaningful in combat. Cloud Soul, permanent 10% move speed. Very good. Very, very, very good. This is a lot of move speed. I like that it's all in combat move speed. People really, really didn't appreciate the out-of-combat stuff, even though Cloud Drakes were good. I think it's good to redesign Cloud Drake, or at least Cloud Soul here, because people really didn't appreciate the buff. Totally makes sense. I'm on board. Permanent move speed is going to feel a lot better. Also of note is there's an extra active effect. When you ult, you gain a bunch of move speed for 3 seconds. This is actually a pretty meaningful amount, right? 30% for 3 seconds is a lot of move speed. You get this 10% already, so it's 40% move speed when you ult. That is incredibly good. That is incredibly powerful. That's so very strong. Cloud Soul seems awesome. Is it as good as 3-second AoE Sheen / Luden's Echo? Is it as good as a 200-point shield? Is it as good as Absurd Regen? I don't know. It's hard to say. Data will tell us. I am supremely confident there will be data tracking on this, either internally or externally. And that's good to know. I'm very curious about this. It's going to be really fun casting this stuff in LCS next year, where it's like, okay, well, here we go. Team Liquid got themselves this Cloud Soul or whatever. This is hype. I like this change. I think it's fun. I think it's exciting. I think it's a fun buff. They also reshaped some of the Elemental Drake buffs. Okay, so Infernal, right? And one thing to point out is if your opponent takes the first 2 elementals, or even if they, if your opponent takes the 2 basic ones, the version 1 of the Drake buffs, and then you take the next 4, you can get 4 stacks of whatever buff. So here is Infernal is getting retooled. Mountain is changing from bonus true damage to epic monsters and turrets into bonus magic resist and armor. Ocean is becoming missing health and mana regen when out of combat to missing health and mana regen. Missing health and not mana regen, period. And Cloud is going from bonus move speed, triple when out of combat, to 10 to 40% ultimate CDR. And I want to point out that ultimate CDR, which is this plus ultimate hunter, scales multiplicatively with basic CDR, which means if you have 40% normal CDR from runes and items, and you have 4 Cloud Drakes, and you have maxed out Ultimate Hunter, you have something like 15 to 17% roughly Ultimate CD. It's faster than Earth, but again, you have to have a max CDR, max Ultimate Hunter, and exactly 4 Cloud Drakes. That is, shall we say, unlikely. And just to continue the thought, the way these things scale, right, each buff is better than the one before, right? Going from 10 to 9, 9 to 8, 8 to 7, 7 to 6, right? 7 to 6 is 1/7 off. 10 to 9 is 1/10 off. So this is like Cloud is the one actual Drake buff that essentially scales on itself. It scales up. It's more parabolic. Whereas Infernal falls off in a sense that, like, obviously these stats are good no matter what, but going from 100 to 105 compared to going from 115 to 120, right, it gets comparatively smaller piece by piece. Okay, so we have math though. So here is Infernal Drake, AD, and AP before. It is technically nerfed, right? 10% becomes 5, 17 becomes 10, 24 becomes 15. Yeah, it is, not as good, you can say. You are overall missing out 5, 7, and 9% of whatever total attack damage ability power you would have had before. Obviously, here you have 20% more than before. In the theoretical world where you get 4 Infernal Drakes, that couldn't have happened otherwise. This probably should have said 24%, but whatever, who cares? Yeah, cool. He didn't even tell you this. It's obviously higher. What doesn't need math is Mountain Drake durability. Okay, so I chose to look between 40 and 240 as your armor or magic resist. 40 is a pretty reasonable armor MR to have when you first kill a mountain drake, and 240 is a pretty reasonable armor MR to have as a late game tank. So if you have 8% more armor MR, right? If you have one mountain drake, for your squishies, you're looking at 2 to 3% more durability, right? Most champions scale to about 80 armor at max level, and most champions scale to about either mid 30s to low 50s magic resistant max level. So you're looking at 2 to 3 to maybe 4% durability, 2 to 4%. Let's just say 2 to 4% durability for your average squishy, right? 2 to 4% more durability against damage overall. Now I want to point out that Infernal Drake is worth 5% more auto attack damage, but not 5% more spell damage, right? Because spells have a base damage that is not multiplied here. This is why I always thought Infernal Drake was overrated for what people were saying about it. It was only 10 to 24% more damage for AD carries, for auto attack marksmen that mostly relied on critical strikes, like a Jinx or a Twitch. But as soon as you're playing Jhin, all that base damage on your Q, the base damage on your W, the base damage on your R, Kai'Sa's passive, Xayah's E, those all have base damages that are unaffected by this. And as we know, generally speaking, spells are still a pretty big function of how these champions dealt their damage. So this was never in the real world a 10% damage buff. Ever. The closest you ever got was maybe Ashe, and no one plays Ashe in Pro. So I always felt like the Infernal value was overstated. It certainly matters some, but it doesn't matter a ton. This is, generally speaking, stronger in PvP combat than Infernal Drake, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Mountain Drake is giving you, 2 to 4% more durability for a squishy at the first stack, and again, much like Infernal, where you don't care about that incremental progress, right? It's more like 4 to 7%, becomes 7 to 10%, becomes 9 to 15%, 9 to 14%. You're not getting quite as much per rank up there. But hey, if you're a really big tank, 5% more durability for one Drake. That's more than 80 carries ever got from Infernal. The max you could ever get from Infernal in the new patch is 5% more damage. That's what you get right now at 200 armor. And then it becomes 11%, then it becomes 16%, then it becomes 22%. This is a lot of durability. Ultimately, the math says this matters a lot. Here's the Ocean regen. Technically, it's, weaker at the first one, but it doesn't turn off out of combat, but you don't get mana. But the numbers are actually higher at 2 and 3, which is good, because Ocean was probably the one thing that didn't need to have non-linear scaling. It needed to actually just be bigger. Ocean really fell off in the late game. Now that it works in combat, it probably doesn't fall off as much in the mid to late game. Like, think about this, I have 20% more durability if I am a tank. Imagine every 5 seconds getting 20% of your health back. If you're at half HP, it's 10% of your max HP. If you're at 10%, it's essentially 20% of your max HP. This is an absurd amount of regeneration. Like, I'm not even sure if Dr. Mundo can be killed with 4 Ocean Drakes. It might just not be possible. This could be a huge problem. I don't know. I mean, there's been playtesting, and the playtesters are all D1 to Master to GM. They're very good players. They're all better than me. So I generally trust Riot to have good tuning here, but we're going to find some stuff, right? There's going to be some huge variance in power level, and we're going to see some stuff move around. That's just kind of going to be true. Next up, here's some Drake spawn mechanics we talked about. The first 3 Drakes are always unique, and from Drake 3 onwards, they always are the same. 5-minute respawn is still the same, but now it switches to Infernal switches to Elder not at 35, but once one team claims a soul. That's when that happens. And now, since because they're saying that because the Drake buff scaling is back to being linear, and the first and second aren't as good overall. And really just the first isn't as good overall because the first 2 Drakes killed are always going to be singletons and they'll never give you more, right? So if the first strike's Infernal, you will only ever see 5% more damage. First strike Mountain, you'll only ever see 8% more durability. So here's Drake health. Basically, they changed Drake health. Basically, 1 strike spawns at 5 minutes. They say, well, they have to be level 6. Like, realistically, you actually can't fight this until you're level 4 because you have to get to 5 minutes. If you're a support, you're about level 4. If you're a mid laner, you're about level 6. But here is the actual health before and after. This is the real part of the table that matters. About 17% less durability, right? These are easier to take, easier to sneak. So that Olaf that takes this camp at 5 minutes, totally doable, right? About 1,000 less health in most cases. Really, really big deal. Really impactful. This matters a lot. Absolutely matters a lot. Again, they do push you towards getting the Dragon Soul, right? Because you just need to get 4, period. And it's still a useful buff. But again, the intrinsic value of that 1 Drake is by itself lower in most cases. Worth thinking about. Ulti CDR doesn't even do anything when you're not even level 6 yet, right? Like, they actually are intrinsically less valuable, but you're working towards an end game goal. That is like the big mind share difference, that like they are objectively weaker objectives, but they're easy to kill, so it's okay. And you have an alternate win condition, which is take 4 Drakes. And it's not really a win condition, but it's a huge power surge. Like I would take, this infernal, nerf, right? 15% instead of 24% if it means I get this infernal soul. Like that's probably still power up. But it means I'm troughing better. All right. Elder Dragon also changed, right? No longer buffs the other things, right? Elder Dragon no longer makes your Drake buffs even bigger. So when you were triple Infernal Elder Dragon and you had 24% bonus attack damage, it became 36% bonus attack damage. It's still just 15, right? Power down. All right, what about the burn damage? And this one was interesting, right? Because the Elder Dragon itself essentially counted as a stack, right? It's 45 flat because you killed an Elder Dragon plus 45 per elemental. Now it doesn't matter how many you took, right? So like when your opponent, kills the first 2, 3, 4 Drakes and takes the soul, and then Elder Dragon spawns at 26 minutes, if you sneak Elder Dragon, that objective is as good for you as it is for them, which I think is a good thing, by the way, right? Like we're losing, but we snuck Baron, right? That Baron is full power. I'm glad that Elder Dragon is also full power. I'm also glad they're doubling down and saying, no, Elder Dragon is the PvP buff and Baron is the PvE buff. Like, I like the design choice of further separating what these things do. I love it, right? Because I got conflicted when you're like, we have all these Ocean Drakes and an Elder Dragon, so we can regen, so we can siege for longer. We got all these Mountain Drakes, and then took the Elder Dragons, so we can kill turrets faster, right? Like, that was kind of whack. And so I'm glad that instead, it's like, no. This just gives you damage. Like, all Elder Dragon does is a burn and an execute. That is the only thing the buff does now. That is it, right? Baron buffs your minions and gives you some adaptive force. Elder Dragon gives you some burn damage and some kills. So, let's look at the burn damage first, because also worth pointing out is that second Elder used to increase the burn damage, right? So again, it was like, I took 1 and then a second and then 90 per elemental Drake. Look at all this damage. So I did some math, right? So of course you couldn't get old Elder Dragon before 34 minutes. So theoretically, you actually can't get it at 25, but they technically included the math here. You can get it at 26. So you have this much damage over 3 seconds for landing a spell. I want to point out this is about as much damage you get for having an Infernal Soul, right? So the early Elder Dragon burn is as good as Infernal Soul. They're basically identical. I hit you and deal 108 damage. Oh, it lasts 3 seconds? That's curiously similar to my cooldown. This is the same buff. Which is fine, by the way, if you, take all the Drakes and you get an early Infernal, you have this and Infernal Soul. Guess we win. Also want to point out, right, the Mountain Drake. The Mountain Drake shield for 225. Well, that lasts the first 40 minutes of Elder Dragon buff. So, if we're going to compare the soul to the Elder Dragon, we're in, reasonably similar territory power level-wise. This is about as good. I mean, in rough terms, right, the ways we can compare, yeah, they're a little similar. They're not always the same. Like, don't get me wrong. There's going to be cases where one's better than the other, but they're a little similar. And what we did right here is like, here's the linear scaling, and it stops at 270, and it obviously gets really high at 270. It's better than Infernal Soul late game, don't get me wrong. And by comparison, here was old Elder Dragon Burn. If you had 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 Elemental Drake buffs. I think 6 existed like 3 or 4 times across the last 2 years in pro play. Like, it was pretty rare. So we said, okay, well, if I have a 35-minute Elder and it was a sneak, it's 4 times as good. If I have a 36-minute Elder and I got one before, it's twice as good. It's just, hey, let's just put the numbers down so we can kind of compare, right? If I actually got a 5-Dragon Elder, this is what we're looking like here, right? This compares pretty closely to a 40-minute and really to a 45-minute Elder Dragon. These are the kind of numbers we see. And if we really took second Elder, which was theoretically possible at exactly 41 minutes as the earliest possible second Elder, well, it's 130 damage outright at the very little. But hey, let's say we had, 3 Elder. Let's say we had 3 Elemental Drakes. We took second Elder. It's 405 damage. That's obviously much higher than the old version. Plus, of course, adding to all of our Elemental Drake buffs. So, okay, the whole, I took all the Drakes, then took Elder is weaker. Except that there's Souls now. And so with Souls, you have that buff instead. You have the Infernal Soul ping for 90 bonus damage. Well, that makes up for it in most cases. Okay, makes sense. I think that lines up pretty well. So, we're still in pretty similar territory. And then also, a damaging enemy at less than 1/5 health causes them to die to an Elder Immolation after half a second, no cooldown. You execute champions at 1/5 health. Note the 20% threshold looks higher than it is in practice. You don't need to bring an enemy to exactly 1999 before they go boom. Yeah, because you will bring them down to 10% during your salvo, and then the game will do the rest for you. And because it waits half a second, you will often land 2 more auto attacks or something. This is still power up, don't get me wrong. And hey, Zhonya's Hourglass and Kindred are, and, Zillion Ultimate, all these things will still matter, don't get me wrong. Right, Tryndamere will survive through this. All these effects still exist. But hey, by the way, big stuff. This is obviously a very big deal. This is a very, very big deal, right? This is essentially, let's call it 15% bonus damage. In the average case, let's call it 15% bonus damage. That is huge, right? If it takes you, about, let's call it 3,000 outgoing damage to kill a champion, which seems about right? After Armor Magic Resist, it takes, 3,000 damage to kill a non-tank before Armor MR. Yeah, that sounds about reasonable. Maybe a little bit more as time goes on with more shields, more lifesteal, 3,000 to 4,000 damage. If this is a 15% damage amp on that, this is worth 450 to maybe 600 damage in terms of outgoing damage output. That's really big. That's more than the Elder Dragon Burn. That's more than the Infernal Dragon Soul. Now, this only matters in kill effects, right? This is, if I was going to kill them through this effect, it was worth 15% more damage. If we're poking back and forth, it's worth 0 damage. And that's really where, you can't just do math for this kind of stuff. In a team fight, it's probably worth 15% more damage. In a poke battle, it's worth 0. And this is, in some cases, weaker than the old Elder Dragon. So, it's a tough call. I would say, overall, Elder Dragon is probably a slightly weaker buff than before. That's maybe a tough call to make. That's maybe not true. But it's going to be flashy as hell when you spawn this at 30 minutes because you took the first 4 Drakes on cooldown and you're pushing to win the game. This is going to make your Baron setups look real nice. It also means that Maokai can finally get some kills. It also means that in some cases, missing health heals like Darius is going to be weaker because if you get him down to 19%, doesn't matter how good your Q is, you're dead. Alrighty. However, they are increasing the buff duration of this to 3 minutes, and they are decreasing, and they're keeping basically the same spawn rate. Yeah, okay. So up to 3 minutes on Elder Dragon, that's a cool thing. Baron is going down from 3.5 to 3 minutes. Also a cool thing. Sure. All right, I'm on board. So they're both up for 3, off for 3 when you take them. I'm totally down for this. I like things that get cleaned up. I like clean numbers. I like obvious dualities. I'm about it. Here's the visuals. They look nice. I like that they're using Louis Kiana. All right. Right. Blue buff, red buff, getting hit by red buff, Elder Dragon, Baron buff. All the buffs with Dragon Soul on top. And it's an Infernal Dragon Soul, as you can tell. It looks pretty. It looks nice. Alrighty. So, that's part 1. Here's part 2 of the global map changes. Rift Herald now exists earlier into the game. It spawns at 8 minutes, and it respawns once as early as 14 if you can instant kill it. The despawn is the same, but it is overall easier to kill. And so here is Rift Herald PvE health. Well, it's mostly easier, but if you go for Herald number 2 at, 18 and a half, 19 minutes in, it is slightly more durable, but whatever. What this means, though, is you can get that 8-minute Rift Herald, and it's easier to do, right? So, 8-minute Rift Herald. Why not? Now keep in mind the timing, right? If you kill it at 8, it won't spawn until after 14. You can never get plates twice. That's worth noting. But early Rift Herald, more takeable. 17% less health for the early game Rift Herald. And it still does great damage, still knocks down plates, so that's really, really strong. Okay, what about when you summon it? Also less health. Now again, the late game, 19-minute Heralds are about the same durability, but that super early Herald, yep, 1/5 less health. Easier to kill. Good to know. Easier to take, easier to kill. Summon Rift Herald, right? You have less time to pick it up, so you don't have that like River Dance for as long. The channel's only 1 second. I'm down with that as well. The Herald level, by the way, is determined when you pick it up now. So your summoned Herald is overall a little bit weaker than before. We talked about the health being weaker than before as well. We can also talk about how much damage this can do, right? How much headbutt turret damage we could have. Now, theoretically, a max health Rift Herald could do 1600 to 2560. And if it was damaged, of course, the minimum was down to this, right? So 16 to 1560, this is 15 to 1550, right? So the max health headbutt damage is basically the same. It is very, very slightly down, but realistically not changed much. In the cases where it is injured, though, I have math. And it's this, right? So this is level 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, with the same percentage P being these numbers, right? So, fairly injured Rift Herald, right? For the first, honestly, most of health bar, if it was pretty much injured kind of at all, it did the minimum 1500 damage. And in fact, if you're looking at, old level 1 Rift Herald or level 6 Rift Herald, right? 1600, that doesn't take very much to drop to the 1500 minimum, right? So essentially all your early Rift Heralds were doing close to minimum damage, which was this much. But now you don't have downscaled damage. It's flat. So in general, your Herald is doing more damage. The Herald is easier to kill, it is easier to destroy on the opposing side, and it does more damage in most cases. So the Herald is going to take down more of your turret plates. And I want to point out that Rift Herald does true damage, and plates all have 1000 health. So you can actually count exactly how many plates the Herald itself will take down, which is 1.5 to eventually 2 full plates to eventually, though this is now too late in the game for it to have plates anymore, it takes a full half of a turret in the end game. Well, at 19 minutes when you summon it late. But worth noting, right? Like this is the actual damage we have, and I actually like that it's super deterministic. I'm a fan of this. I like that it's super deterministic. The other big thing is that the headbutt self damages it for 2.5 times as much. So it goes down 1 charge, 13 HP. It's going to charge once and then die. So what this also means is that it's going to cash in for turret plates more reliably because you're going to kill it more reliably. You're going to summon it more reliably. You have essentially 2 extra minutes. You have 50% longer to use this because instead of using it between 10 and 13.5, you can summon it between 8 and 13.5, right? So there's more of the game state where you can summon a Herald and kill the Herald and use it in a lane. So you're going to have, more Herald use here. But it's really going to get 1 charge then die, which is fine. I'm down with that. Cool, but I like this change, right? You get a second Herald, you can break top lane with it. Seems fun. Minion XP changed by about 2%. This essentially, what this is going to mean in a lot of practicality is obviously solo lane is going to be a bit more head. Supports who share XP are going to be even farther behind, which kind of sucks because I like seeing supports have some levels, but I mean, that's life, I guess. But it also means that it's a pretty big deal for bot laners um, when their supports leave the lane, right? Because you were getting 28 XP versus 58 XP. Now you're getting 27 versus 60. Right? So now there's a more than, I mean, am I doing this right? Right? Shared XP becomes, oh, sorry, it becomes 37. Sorry, my brain was AFK. Instead of 38, it becomes like 37 and a half. And then this, is still 60. So you're still getting more than half by sharing, just that difference is shrunk slightly. That, the bonus XP for duoing is going down very slightly. So this actually should, I believe, overall, it'll actually probably keep the amount of XP in the game probably pretty close to similar. Since 2 people are sharing and 2 people are getting solo, it's probably about the same. But it definitely does help if you are just 1v0 or 1vx silent split pushing. It builds up the split push play style, right? 1-3-1 is inherently stronger now. That untapped minion lane that no one's taking is 2% more valuable than it used to be. And this 4-person lane we're all sitting in here pushing a turret, it's 2% less value than it used to be. So get out and grab that other lane. That is actually pretty meaningful, right? That's going to have, it's minor, it's subtle, it doesn't change the game by a ton. Old strats will still be good, but it means that going and being a side laner and rage splitting and doing whatever is more valuable. And your support, roaming, getting out of the lane, is essentially giving up less XP than before. So one of the aspects of turret plating, not only do turrets gain armor and MR as turret plates drop just overall, but turrets gain extra armor MR for a few moments right after they drop if they're being power pushed. So I think one thing we saw a lot was, 13-minute Rift Herald summon into 3 people pushing the turret down and whacking it and whacking it and whacking it until the turret died. With the Herald dying sooner and these plates giving an extra 10 MR per 3rd, 4th, 5th attacker. It wasn't often 5th, but, it was pretty often to see 3-person pushes, sometimes even see 4-person pushes, right? It's 10, 20, 30, 60, right? Because if your Herald charges 2 plates down and there's 4 people, it's 20, 40 more MR. That's meaningful. That's a substantial durability bump with only, 110 armor at that point. So that's meaningful. That means you don't necessarily just complete the turret push as easily. In general, we probably see less full turret destruction in this patch. It means that when you get a successful gank, you probably only cash in 1 plate then recall. You don't as often cash in the plate and then say, we can stay for the last 2 and kill the turret off. So it's going to have some small shaping behavior. Your turret is less likely to die when you get ganked and they 3v0 the turret. Doran's shield now has a melee range split. Right, the regen passive, instead of just always being up to 30 over 10, it's up to 40 over 8, which is not only more health, but it's health faster. So the actual regen per second, it goes from 3 per second to 5 per second. 2/3 of 5 is pretty close to 3. It's a bit under that, but this regen per second is about the same for ranged. But it's also it's also a bit lower when you're just kind of getting hit by a random AoE on accident. But if you're, playing Darius into Jace, it's a meaningful amount of health difference. At least in combat. The amount you get overall is not that different. It's only 10, but matters. All right, next up, big jungle XP changes. All right, we're not done with this patch. There's a lot more going on here. Okay, so essentially the amount of XP per camp got changed, but don't worry, the first camp bonus is high enough that you are going to keep getting, your full level on the first camp. Camps are respawning faster. Also, if you saw it, you get a 15-second warning that the camp's going to respawn on small camps, which is awesome. 15-second warning instead of 20-second warning on the buff camps. Also cool about it. And then they changed all of the camps, okay? So Krugs no longer have the first clear penalty, but are worth a lot less XP, and are worth a little bit less gold. Wolves, less XP, less gold. Gromp, more durable, more XP, more gold. Raptors, less XP, less gold. So we ran the numbers here, okay? Jungle Monster XP. Here's the old value. Here's the new value. Here's how much XP the camp was worth before versus after. But with the respawn timer in mind, what is the XP per minute? And this is where we see what's happening. Very small, moderate buffs to wolves and raptors. And keep in mind that this actually trends towards the 100%. Because there is a non-zero time spent killing the camp that is flat. So if it was a 150-second respawn, it's really 155, and the 120 respawn becomes 125 because you still have to kill the camp. So this goes closer and closer to 100%. It goes down slightly because actual combat needs to happen. Even if you are farming perfectly, in a lot of cases, of course, you're not farming perfectly, which means, okay, the game is telling you, hey, get back in your jungle, and hey, catch these camps. Right, so not only is it a actual strict numerical buff to power farming, but it's also a strict numerical buff to power farmers, because when you only kill the camp once in a while, and you're ganking forever, you're getting pretty far behind the Lee Sin, or the Master Yi, rather, who is power farming. Right? XP per minute is difference, right? And here's just the numbers, right? Right? Krugs are worth 99 XP per minute. These are all worth 46 XP per minute. Now there's actually some variance, right? The gap between Krugs and Gromp is closer. It is still Krugs favored, but it is not the biggest by double anymore. I mean, actually double, right? It's a little bit closer. Gromp is now close enough that now as a blue side jungler, you might play towards top side because Gromp is really worth killing. Especially if you're not an AoE champion. Like if you're Lee Sin, it's not that hard to kill Gromp. It's really annoying to kill the Krugs. Well, I guess I can camp for Riven now because I'm going to take the time to kill Gromp every time from 135 XP. It's more than it was before. It's 20 more than before. And even though Wolves and Raptors are worth less, they respawn fast so I can make up for it maybe. The same thing happened for Gold. Now, it's not as heavy, right? Once again, Gromp got buffed. But here's the gold per minute difference, right? Actually, Krugs worth a whole lot more gold per minute. The XP goes down, gold goes up, Gromp still goes up by a ton, right? Wolves and Raptors, you're still seeing a like 3 to 5% difference. Overall, I'd say Raptors as a camp got nerfed, which is fine. It's another buff to single target junglers, right? This is something that, you'd look at, I mean, not that Nocturne was common, but, Gragas, Sejuani was popular for a really long time. Like every Cinderhulk jungler just ate Raptors every time, and it was right the most gold per camp not named Krugs, and Krugs was also an AoE camp. So now look at the biggest camps, right? Look at this 105 gold for Gromp. Wow, single target junglers are back a little bit. And this is going to be a tuning that we're going to see, right? Like, we're going to see Gromp versus everything else probably shift a little bit. If it's like, well, we're only seeing Xin Zhao now, it's like, okay, well, maybe we move it back a little bit and we can move things around. We're thinking at these. But, okay, again, let's look at the gold per minute from the old camps. 50, 34, 34, 45, right? Like, Raptors challenged Krugs for gold per minute. And now look at the new breakdown, right? Gromp and Krugs, once again, pretty close, right? They're pretty comparable. They're about 10% off. This is more like 13% off, but we have Wolves still, Wolves being a pretty bad camp in terms of being only 35 gold per minute. I mean, it's better than it was, but it's still pretty bad. It's less different than Raptors, but we still have some pretty high variation in how much gold per minute these things are worth. Wolves are still less gold per minute than Krugs. You can kill 2 wolf camps every spawn, and it was probably still better to do Krugs every time. I mean, the XP per minute still somewhat reinforces that. So it's not, just, hey, here's the numbers, by the way. One thing I also want to point out was what is the actual total XP per minute before and after, and it's really close. And again, keep in mind that in the real world, it takes time to kill the camps, as sometimes you have this 30 to 40 to 50 second delay where you're not killing the camps because you got to go do other stuff. So in the real world, XP gain is down in the jungle, just like flat out. It just is. There is less XP in the jungle. This is not up for debate. Even though, optimal case, the numbers are higher, XP is down. Gold, however, is up. And what's interesting to me is junglers were already the gold leaders in the early game. Now, what's interesting, of course, to note is that, right, -5, -14, -30, +30, right? So full clear of your jungle is less total gold, and that's relevant, right? That's a big factor. Full clear into recall to buy your first item, Breakpoints are different. Maybe you can't get that control ward anymore, depending on which camps you took. Like, who knows? You have to path around it. Maybe there are some, like, decent, Gromp including recalls, but, like, if you do Gromp and Raptors, that's net 0, minus 20. Now, the gold per minute is theoretically up over time, but again, after your first clear, you're down in gold. That's your first recall in most cases. If you are power farming, though, you are gold up, right? So again, look at the Master Yi's of the world. If you're power farming, you are gold up. And that's the thing we saw with junglers, is like in the very early game, junglers would often be the highest gold in the game. Because they kill the camps right away, they get a gank off, they recall, they kill the camps right away, they're not often very well disturbed. Anytime a team is doing well, the jungler's the highest gold in the game in the early game. Offloading the early gold indeed nerfs early jungling, but it does buff late game jungling to the tune of a pretty meaningful amount. This is 27 more gold. This is 15% more gold per minute. So now the ability to transition into being a viable mid to late game gold farming jungler is maybe actually supported. Maybe, right? And again, power farming is not giving you more levels than anyone else, but it is giving you enough gold to maybe keep up. 190 gold per minute is pretty close to lane farm, right? If you're getting, about 105, no, hold on. Yeah, you're getting about 105 gold per wave, not counting cannon minion. Waves every 30 minutes, or every 30 seconds. You don't get every CS every time, obviously, nor do you get every jungle camp every time, obviously. This is not counting red and blue buff, which, by the way, also exists and were unchanged, so I'm not even looking into those. Yeah, this is pretty close, right? This feels like the numbers are pretty close to what you can get from the lane. And your red and blue buff is the laner's cannon minions. Okay, mid to late game jungle income is reliable out of the jungle. Wow, that's okay, The numbers are there. The numbers support it. Good to know. Next major factor of the patch, lethality item update. 2 new items added. So Duskblade loses the ward killing passive, and the stats change around. So here's Duskblade old and new. Overall, you paid 250 gold for the passives for Blackout and Night Stalker. Now, as the stats get moved around and you get 5 more attack damage, you're paying 78 gold for Night Stalker, but of course you lost Blackout. So the item is overall, in a PvP sense, more efficient, and that is not up for debate, right? It is strictly better in PvP with the 5 damage. I mean, PvE as well, technically, but it no longer kills wards. But okay, and I like this, by the way. And one of the sort of design tenets that the designer used on this was to try to make items only, and I love this. I personally like this a lot. Items only gain 1 unique passive at a time. If I upgrade from item A to item B step by step by step, I only gain 1 new effect. Duskblade gains Night Stalker, and that's it. Great, I'm about that. That sounds good. Here's Yumi's Ghostblade. Essentially unchanged. The difference is you now have Ghost when you activate it, which is also a good change. I like that. I think it makes sense, right? Now you're Assassin, you'll get minion blocked. Yeah, I'm about it. I'm on board. Sounds great. Edge of Night updated. A little bit cheaper, less AD, less lethality, more health. And instead of being the active spell shield, it is simply a Banshee's Veil spell shield. Now, this change in isolation, I also like. I think this is a good change. Honestly, I really do. I like non-active active items, right? So things like Banshee's Veil, things like Luden's Echo, things like Sheen, right? The item has gameplay that you use by playing, but you don't have to press a 5th button or a 7th button on your keyboard to use it. I think that is good design. I think it's good for the game. I think it's important that games remain accessible, like just in the sense that your friend who is new that you're introducing to League can buy this item and actually use it. League is hard. It is. The game is hard, okay? It's a hard game, and there's, even if every active in the game finds a way to become a passive, it will still be a hard game that is mechanically complex, that is intellectually difficult as well, strategically sound, coordination required. Like, you could strip every actor from the game and League would still be a hard game. I think these are good changes for the health of the game. That is my very strong opinion. Anyway, it becomes a Banshee's Veil. Cost goes down, stats go around. Here is Edge of Night before. You paid 3 gold for the active. Now you pay 150 gold for the passive. Yeah, right. We're paying very, very little for a completed item for a solid extra effect, right? Here's my Edge of Night, AD lethality health, and it's 150 for a spell shield. I'm willing to pay that cost. Now, obviously, it's less damage, right? It's 50 AD and 10 lethality instead of 60 AD and 21 lethality. Clearly, Duskblade is a much bigger damage dealer. But you know what? You buy Edge of Night for the 300 health and the spell shield. And I like that the stat line is further pushed that way. I know I talked about AD itemization before and Zeals and those things and tank itemization. Hey, why can't they all be the same stat line? But in this case, it is doing something different than what those items do. It is going into defense, right? It's why I like the design of Phantom Dancer, right? Phantom Dancer has less attack speed and no aggressive options on it because it gives you a shield. It is the lowest damage Zeal option because it's the defensive Zeal. I think that's good design. Here's Edge of Night. It is very clearly the defensive option. And actually, I didn't even have this at the right cost. This is 2,900 gold. So you're paying 58 gold, much like 78 gold for the passive. Like, wow, you're paying a sub 100 gold cost for the unique passive. And as long as the stat line looks good, I'm on board. And by the way, I also like this item design where the stats on the tin line up with item value. Like, I would love if there was a way to magically balance every active and passive in League of Legends to say, yep, you know, whatever premium you're paying on Sheen, that's just how good Sheen is, right? Like, you're paying for mana, you're paying for CDR, and it gives you those stats. And Sheen is maybe only 50% proc, but that's okay. And you go up to Triforce, and it's 100% gold efficient across all the stats, and here's your 200% attack damage proc. Like, I think that would be really cool, right? Because it also allows you to, like, I think more aggressively tune your active effects. Because, well, Banshee's Veil is stat efficient, so here's the shield on top. Or Riley's is stat efficient, here's the slow on top. I think it's pretty reasonable, because then it means that, you know, when I spend 15,000 gold on items, I have exactly 15,000 gold worth of stats. And the choices that I made in the item shop were essentially 15,000 gold worth of free unique passives and actives. I would love to see a standardization where every item looks like this and has a sub 100 gold bonus. And it's something cool like Night Stalker or something cool like the Spell Shield. I think that'd be a cool world to live in, right? Look at items like Randuin's Omen and Thornmail and Sunfire Cape. Like, find the numbers that feel good and let's do that. I think that is a cool idea. Again, I am biased by loving clean numbers, but I really do think that that is a healthy state for the game. Because again, it means I like idiot-proofing stuff. I really do. And saying, look, I just bought a bunch of lethality stuff. Well, don't worry about it. You got your money's worth of attack damage and lethality and health, which are all good stats. Don't worry, it was fine. Just my very strong opinion on this kind of stuff. All right. Sanguine Blade is a new item that exists. Is a 3,000 gold item that immediately goes against what I just talked about. But here's Sanguine Blade. 50 damage, 10 lethality. I've seen these numbers before. 15 lifesteal, no CDR. And a unique passive, Blood Pursuit. While near one or fewer visible enemy champions, gain lethality and attack speed. Decaying, if enemy champions get too close. So Sanguine Blade is actually not gold efficient, right? You're paying about 500 gold for Blood Pursuit. And for what it's worth, I get it. Like, it would be really hard to find numbers that were satisfying at a 50 gold premium. So I get it. I understand. Like, if this was 2 lethality and 20 attack speed, would you really ever care? And that answer is, of course, no. Right? Of course, that answer is no. So, like, okay, look, there can be exceptions to the rule, and I get that. And in general, I think that's fine. I still like my earlier idea. I'm not going to give that one up, but I also understand why you can't do that literally every time. Anyway, here's Blood Pursuit. Right, you're paying 500 gold for some kind of premium of 8 lethality and 40 to 100% attack speed. And here's what it's worth. 8 lethality is worth 180 gold. reasonable. And this attack speed's worth 1,000 to 2,500 gold. And obviously you don't get this attack speed. You can't buy this item at level 1. Yeah, if we're looking at, hey, what percentage of this 463 gold is it? Well, it's in the attack speed. So to point out, right, like if you're just playing Riven and you really, really don't need attack speed, it doesn't make up for it. It doesn't make up for it. This item is good when you're attacking turrets, right? And it gives you the attack speed to actually play Zed and go to the side lane and start smacking some structures with your blades. Attack speed is probably the single best turret killing stat for any class that's not a marksman, because none of them buy attack speed normally. They have all this attack damage, all this ability power, but they don't hit quickly enough for it to do anything. So this is how you make split pushing even more viable. And this immediately makes attack damage assassins really stand out in pro in a 1-3-1, right? This is an item that, a Yasuo or a Qiyana or a Zed can get that, well, Ryze and Echo can't. Now, maybe that doesn't have to matter. Things like Lichbane can exist and be, plenty good and all that. So, it can be okay down the line. We can also, late game have less MR than armor on turrets if we really think that, split pushing is too much of an AD game. There's tuning levers for that in the current league, mechanics. But yeah, this is a huge split pushing item that, unless you want the attack speed, don't purchase it. Lifesteal is obviously a pretty decent stat. Solid stuff. Second new item is Umbral Glaive. Very cheap item, 2,400 gold, 50 AD, 12 lethality, 10 CDR. I've seen this stat line before, and it gives you the Blackout passive, right? Exact same one from old Duskblade, basically. Almost. We'll get to that in a second. When you spotted by enemy ward, reveal traps around you for 8 seconds, 1 second cooldown, standard stuff. Basic attacks instantly kill traps and deal triple damage to wards. You 2-hit control wards now. It takes 2 hits to kill a control ward. That is a change. That is a change. That is meaningful. You 2-hit control wards. But here's the stat efficiency. And once again, look at the numbers, right? We are paying only about 100 gold for the Blackout passive. Again, I really wouldn't mind a world where you paid 0 for it and, they bumped the lethality by 1 or something, right? Like if you went here. I mean, it takes quite a while to get there, but again, like the numbers could be found. But yeah, this still feels like a really solid stat line. You're paying a very, very small premium for obviously a very good effect. Even just in the wards you kill themselves, you'll probably kill more than 4 wards in a game with this item, and then it'll pay for itself. So cool stuff. And it's cheap, right? For 2,400 gold, I mean, think about it. 3K, 2,900, 2,900, 2,900, right? Like, yeah, this is a meaningful amount cheaper. It's 20% less than most of the other options. This comes online fast. Yeah, it's not a crap ton of offensive power, right? But this is cool stuff. And we talk about no more than 1 unique passive per item. Serrated Dirk only gains the lethality. What's kind of cool about this, by the way, is Serrated Dirk is exactly 100% gold efficient. I mean, and it's exactly 100% gold efficient because this is literally the number people use to derive lethality from. It's like, well, this is just what lethality costs because Serrated Dirk exists. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, to be very clear about this. But I'm totally okay with head under not existing. That's fine. 10 lethality is an amazing stat. It's still a good item. Also, it was definitely weird having components whose passives disappear from upgrades. Totally agree. And yeah, the point is lethality is getting a power up from having more options. Absolutely. Being able to choose option A, B, C, D, or E is power up, even though Duskblade itself is arguably a weaker item. That's fine. All right. Part 4. Support items. I, once again, love the spirit of these changes. Now, the numbers are pretty crunchy. It'll take some time to get into. I'm not still myself certain where the numbers end up making these items land, but I do know I'm excited by this. So, I'm going to skip all this stuff because I'm going to explain it myself. All right. Anti-poaching. If you farm more than 20 CS in 5 minutes, which is 4 CS per minute, which is abysmally low. If you farm more than garbage, your gold income is reduced by 50% from minions. That's a lot because you get about 100 gold, 200 gold per minute from minion waves if you can CS perfectly. A bit more than that when you get cannons, but the penalty increases up to a max of 80% reduction if you actually farm 10 CS a minute for 5 minutes. So, and this never goes away, by the way. You don't like get all the way to Frostfang and then, finish your support quest and go, okay, we're back in it. Nope. This never goes away. Now, what's nice is you have a really, really solid grace period, right? You get a 20 CS grace period. Your AD carry could drop and you fully CS 3 waves and you're fine. I finally don't feel like crap playing Zyra with bad AD carries anymore. I also don't feel like crap actually taking a CS or two. But it never goes away. You can't poach this. And I know we've, it's taken some time to figure out how we can end the poaching of these items. And this feels like the best design I've seen yet. And you always look back and you're like, well, why wasn't that just version 1 of the rule? I don't know. But no one thought of it, right? I didn't see this anyway, of like a, moderate duration track where you can get 3 full waves without getting punished, and it's just your CS damage, your CS gold goes down. I don't think there's a way to game this. Other than like actually tri-laning, nah. Also want to point out, this doesn't only work on Spell Thieves, it works on Relic Shield as well, so the whole Garen Yumi thing is gone as well. Unless I'm misreading stuff, a Relic Shield AD carry is gone. Now, I thought that was interesting. It was certainly abusive. I don't mind seeing it go away. But it's gone. It's just gone. And that's fine with me. All right. So Spell Thieves, the Tribute line is getting an update. So here's how Tribute is changing. Old Tribute gave 13 damage or 18 damage and 11 or 22 gold 3 times every 30 seconds. And if you killed a minion, it got paused, right? It no longer pauses, right? So your ability to trigger Tribute goes up. Even if you do take more waves, it still doesn't turn off Tribute. So, okay. Tribute is more reliable. That's a good change. However, instead of getting damage, you don't get any damage. Instead of getting 11 or 22 gold, you get 15 gold. And that never changes. So Tribute has been condensed and flattened, and I love changes that do that. Tribute is worth 15 gold per trigger. Done. No damage, no turn-off rules, just there. All right, we have items. Spell Thief's Edge, same cost, less AP, has health, no mana regen. Gold generation unchanged. Tribute is the new version, meaning we don't deal bonus damage. And yeah, we don't deal bonus damage, but we get more gold. And instead of spending 450 gold on Frostfang, we get Frostfang automatically by earning money, and not earning money through the item, earning money through Tribute. So instead of the passive GP 10 bumping you up, you finish the quest just from Tribute, right? And this takes 500 total gold with 15 gold per Tribute, meaning it takes 34 tributes. 34 tributes when you can trigger 3 every 30 seconds or 6 per minute. It takes you about 5 to 6 minutes to upgrade this. The laning phase starts at about 2 minutes. You can't finish tribute until about 8. You can't get Frostfang until about 8 minutes. So here's the big stuff, right? You no longer buy tier 2 or tier 3, and it is debatable whether or not the extra 3 gold per tribute is better than the 2 gold counting towards the quest, because the quest is still how you get your Sightstone wards. That's up for debate. But the big thing we can point out, though, is that the item is less efficient, right? You gained AP, you gained mana regen, and you got 13 damage per tribute. You get less HP, you get some health, but very little, and you gain no damage on tribute. Your gold generation is up, because the passive doesn't pause, and it's more gold per trigger. The gold generation is up, but you get less stats, right? So the item is less efficient. You only get 200 gold worth of stats. Okay, what about Frostfang? Well, you had to pay 450 gold for Frostfang. but you got ability power plus 10, mana regen plus 25, so you doubled the item, and you got CDR. You got 18 damage per tribute, you got 22 gold per tribute as well, same 10 GP10. Hey, your warding obviously exists, because of course it did. Well, the AP goes up, but not by as much, only plus 7. Health goes up, but not mana regen. CDR doesn't exist, but the item still only costs you that initial 400 gold. So once you get to Frostfang, the item is indeed gold efficient. And it's arguably more gold efficient than old Frostfang, right? 110 becomes 128%. Now, the one thing I will say with the big asterisk is, again, 18 damage tribute is going away. And even the tribute gold generation is going down, right? Going down by 7 gold per 10 seconds if you can trigger it on cooldown. Your gold per 10 goes up by 1. But unless you only triggered tribute once per minute, this is less gold generation. It's less damage, and it's otherwise as stat efficient. So Frostfang, Spell Thieves isn't better than old Spell Thieves, and Frostfang isn't better than old Frostfang, even with the gold rolled into the cost. Supports are weaker right now, and we're not counting the tribute damage. Just kind of on a stat comparison, these items are weaker. Supports are objectively weaker than before. Then we go to tier 3. And here's what got interesting. Because, of course, mage supports never cared about spending the money on Eye of the Watchers. They never did it. Which, we understood that. We knew that. Their 4th ward, all that stuff. And, part of the reason why is this was 110% gold efficient, and then it was less than full gold efficient when you went here. You were spending the money to get the 4th ward, obviously. But you look at the numbers here, and you're like, yeah, okay. I was getting 1,800 gold worth of stats for 1,800 gold worth of item. And, hey, I have, all these unique passes that exist. It's an okay item, but you could have bought Leanders instead, which people did. Shard of True Ice now exists, and again, is still that same initial 400 gold. You haven't spent a dime since you got Spell Thieves. And you're getting a pretty similar amount of value, right? You're getting 1,700 gold worth of stats in ability power and health. Well, now I'm pretty happy, right? Suddenly, because Shard of True Ice exists, I have this really, really awesome late game, mid game power spike where, yeah, I was weak here and I was weak here, but I just gained 45 ability power and 80 health. I'll take a free blasting wand. That sounds great, right? For 400 gold, yeah, I paid for Ruby Crystal and got 60 AP on top of it. I get the 4 wards without spending a dime, and I keep the 3 gold per 10. I want to point out, by the way, that the tier 3 item loses tribute. You can only ever earn 1,000 gold from the tribute passive, and then it disappears from the item. And I like that. I like that. Your item is done. Your item is done at tier 3. You don't have to do anything except ward. It just exists. It's a pretty big block of stats, 1,700 gold worth of stats, plus 4 wards. This is strong enough to be in your endgame item slot. It's really the same as Eye of the Watchers. Look at this item, right? This is not that different. Yeah, the mana regen and CDR is gone, but, you essentially got Eye of the Watchers back. With arguably, you could debatably call it a better stat line. It's up for interpretation. You weren't triggering tribute on cooldown really anymore anyway, and you get the 4 wards without paying for it. And that's where I'm excited. I'm excited for 2 reasons. The item's been simplified, the rules around the item got better, and honestly, I like tribute going away at tier 3. I think it makes sense. Look, we're not laning anymore. I'm warding around for Baron setups. I'm not going to run around as Janna and Zephyr the Aatrox. He's going to kill me. Why bother? I'm glad it's going away. So we look through this, right? Frostfang, right? AP down, now has health, no regen, no CDR, gold per 10 up, right? Tribute is the same flat tribute. I like that tribute isn't changing at all. Earn 1,000 gold through tribute to go to tier 3, and it's 60 AP, decent health, no regen, no CDR, still has this. Tribute goes away. 4 stealth wards. I like this change. I like the design here. I think it's super cool. I'm really positive on this. There's also essentially a carbon copy of this stat line, and it's Spectral Sickle. It's attack damage instead of AP, and it's really identical, right? So we can look down these numbers, right? So instead of 8 AP, 15 AP, 60 AP, it's 5 AD, 10 AD, 35 AD. But you can see the gold efficiency, right? Still very similar. you're getting, 200, 500, 1700, 200, 500, 1600. Yeah, you could bring this up to like 40. That would be a little bit too high. And what's nice, and I think they might have talked about this at some point, maybe not publicly, but this also allows them to more fine-tune some champions, right? Because there are very, very few attack damage supports right now. Right? If you're looking at Taric and Leona, you're probably still going AP. If you wanted this for some reason, if you wanted the aggressive line, you're not going to do this with Taric and Leona, but like theoretically. But hey, if you're Pyke and you're harassing, or if you're playing Senna and Misfortune and Ashe support and Ezreal support, well, you've got an obviously supporting stat line. Now we're gonna see a whole lot of players playing Lucian support, and it's gonna be kind of an XD. It's gonna be kind of an XD, but this is a raw power up to those champions, right? To the non-Senna supports, it is raw power up. You suddenly can get attack damage in the stat line. So if you were playing MF support before, it is better now. If you were playing Ashe support before, it is better now. And it's better to the tune of having 35 attack damage. Cool. I like this. I like this a lot. These are cool items. Next up, Relic Shield rework. All right. And they split Relic Shield into two versions. There is the AP Relic Shield and the AD Relic Shield, much like these items. So like with Tribute, they've standardized Spoils of War. It is flat. It is arguably better for Relic Shield. It is worse for Tier 2, much like with Spell Thieves. It goes away at Tier 3. We get it. So, old Spoils of War had a whole bunch of math around when it would execute things. It included your attack damage. It healed people based on missing health. And the charges scaled up, right? The charges scaled up, the rate scaled, all that stuff. Now, simply 50% execute or 30% for ranged. So, oh my god, guys, gals, everyone in between, whatever you call yourself, you're all relevant people. I love you all. Thresh can use Relic Shield. Thresh can use Relic Shield. Do you know how many cannon minions I have lost to Relic Shield Thresh? Do you know how much gold I am missing right now because of Relic Shield Thresh? I could pay for healthcare in America if this existed before. Be still my heart. 1/3 health of a cannon minion is like 200 HP. Even supports can do that math. It's a Christmas miracle. Thresh can last hit cannons. Everyone rejoice. Now, they recharge every 45 seconds, and there are a max of 3 charges. So theoretically, it is technically can be less available gold than old Tier 1. But in the real world, having 3 charges means you have more available to you. Like, this is generally a buff for Tier 1. It's just like, it's going to be a buff for Tier 1. You can get all 3 melees in the first or second wave, which is awesome, right? Like, use stack 1 in the first wave, and then just execute the melees on wave 2. Do it big. Go be awesome. Of course, you look at Tier 1, 20 less health, but has 5 AP, and standardized just like with Spell Thief's Edge, 2 gold per 10. Much like with the Tribute change, the only thing Spoils of War does is earn gold. It does not heal, it does not deal damage, it just earns gold. There is no extra benefit. The stats from the item are in the item itself, which again, I'm actually pretty happy about. I think it's a good thing for the item, for the game, for the game's design. But you can see, right? Let's look at old Spell Thieves. 8 AP, 10 health. New Relic Shield, 5 AP, 30 health. Right? It's the same stats, but they're this way. It's towards tank stats and not towards damage. The same is true for the attack damage line. We'll get to that later. Targon's Buckler, bit less health, some AP still. No health regen, gold per 10 is up, same stuff here, right? Earn gold through Spoils of War, Bulwark of the Mountain, right? Here's health, here's AP, no CDR, no health regen, 3 gold per 10, only the warding passive. So let's go into this, right? Let's look at the old Relic Shield stuff, right? It used to be 133 gold worth of stats and nothing else. Now it's 189 gold worth of stats. Want to point out, old Tier 1s were all already about 200 gold, right? Spell Thieves 200 gold, Sickles 200 gold, 189 is close enough. I mean, this could have gone to like 6 AP or like 35 health or something, but like, who cares? It's fine. If they want to buff Relic Shield by 10 HP, they can. It's fine. We kind of go on through, right? Okay, so yeah, technically stat up, but I want to point out also, right, gold per 10 is up. Spoils of War, I will say again, is better, but keep in mind, this is losing the Spoils of War heal, which was absolutely relevant. It absolutely mattered. Absolutely mattered. So I would argue the item is powered down as a result of this change. It's more gold income with, again, more spoils generally usable. The GP10 being up, you're going to get the tier 2 sooner. That's awesome stuff. We're going to see more gold on the supports, and that gold can pay for some items, right? Like, that's where the payoff comes in down the line. But as an item in pure combat stats, it is weaker. We go to Targon's Brace, right? Health and health regen. Well, now it's health and AP. And, well, true to old Targon's Brace, it was 480 gold worth of stats for 850 gold worth of cost. But, hey, you were getting Spoils of War. And this, really goes to show you that, like, tank supports are really getting the short end of the stick. Mostly because Spoils of War passive was so good. It's like, well, we are at 484 gold worth of stats like before. I mean, you look back to Frostfang, right? And it's like, okay, this is definitely a bit weaker. But we're keeping the actual stat line, which is, hey, you're getting about 500 gold worth of stats from your tier 2. And again, you're not paying for the tier 2. So you're gold efficient. You're gold efficient for AP and health, but you get some more gold generation, and wards. So if you're a support player, this item by itself is obviously worth buying, right? Like, that is still true. This item is clearly still worth buying. And you go to tier 3, and it's 1,700 gold worth of stats of ability, power, and health. Spoils of War goes away, because let's be real, late game when Sivir one-shot the entire wave, it was frustrating. So you don't have to play around that minigame anymore. You just get your 14 or your 1,270 gold worth of free stats. You keep your free gold, and you still get 3 gold per 10. Which is not garbage. Now, certainly, if you could somehow perfectly use Spoils of War late game, you could get, like, I don't know, something like 20-something gold per 10 by perfectly last hitting everything and getting every cannon. But that wasn't realistic. That wasn't going to actually happen in your games. So, whatever. Just take your 2 gold per 10 above the old version and, save your 1,400 gold worth of purchases, keep your stat efficiency about the same, and just go buy real items. Right? And that's the really big thing here, is that mage supports are saving 450 gold, tank supports are saving 1,400 gold, and that means you're just going to buy a Knight's Vow. Like, by the time a 9.22 support had Eye of the Aspect, a 9.23 support has Bulwark of the Mountain and almost a Knight's Vow. And that's when you can't compare directly anymore, because, right, items that you buy, by definition, are the best item in the game for you, right? Or we would have bought something else, which means every item you buy is better than their gold value in stats. And so 1,400 gold to a support is worth more than 1,400 gold worth of value, because they're putting it towards Knight's Vow, or Zeke's Harbinger, or Redemption, or whatever. Also want to point out, again, because Relic Shield's, assassination damage, execute damage, can work for ranged. If you're like, you know what? I'm playing Zyra, and I'm into, Leona Draven. I'm going to just go Bulwark. Like, I'm not going to harass because I can't. I'm going to just last hit some minions. I'm playing Janna into a Thresh lane. Yeah, you know what? It's 40 AP instead of 60 AP. That's close enough. Because I'm getting 150 more health, right? I'm trading 20 AP for 150 health. I'm trading an Amp Tome for Ruby Crystal. Because these items are otherwise identical. Tier 3 items are the same item. It's the same warding passive, the same passive GP10. Your active gold generation is gone. You're trading an Amp Tome for Ruby Crystal. And in the first 20 minutes of the game, 50 minutes of the game, you're choosing how you're earning the gold. That's it. That's it. There's nothing else to do. You're clean. You're not getting extra regen in either case. You're not getting extra harass damage in either case. Just pick the stat line you want. And I'm going to assume that Riot can easily just tweak the math. If Tribute's too good or Relic Shield's too good, they can just tweak how often Tribute's available or how much gold it gives, how often you get charges from Relic Shield. Those are very easy to change. And again, you can only ever earn 1,000 gold from either one. And then they turn off anyway. So it's the same income, it's the same stat line. I love fairly equivalent choices where I'm choosing, do I want AP or AD? Do I want tankiness or more damage? And that's it, right? You're making fairly clean, obvious choices in the early game. And there's going to be players in your games tomorrow morning where the guy goes, XD, why are you Spell Thieves Thresh, you idiot? It's okay. It's okay. It's fine. They'll learn one day. It's fine, right? Why did you go Relic Shield Janna is going to be the big one. Relic Shield Janna, Relic Shield Lulu, we're going to see some of that. And that's totally fine. Now, there's also an attack damage version of the melee line. Well, I shouldn't even say melee line, of the Spoils of War line, right? 30 health, 3 attack damage for 400 gold. Double the 100 health, 6 attack damage, 300 health, 24. Also, I'm pretty sure Paladins of Whiterun is a reference to, I believe it's the designer who actually worked on the system. But there is a Mr. Whitrock on, who, by the way, we won Riot Rumble together. The jacket is... Oh, it's not here, is it? It's not in this room. I don't feel like making the effort to go find it. But we won a Riot Rumble together. He was my top laner. I was the bot lane. Good person. Like him a lot. Anyway, want to point out that this is probably a reference, and that's super cool. I love that. There's a few Phreak references in League of Legends, and I love that too. But anyway, once again, let's look at the stat breakdown, right? So comparing Steel Shoulder Guards to Old Relic Shield. Again, Old Relic Shield had a really bad stat line, but you had the Spoils of War heal. 180 gold worth of stats, 477 worth of stats, 1640 worth of stats. And again, this can go up to like 25 or something, right? Like, they can find the numbers needed to make this item worth buying. You know, we may well see Pike go for this because it's easier to use Relic Shield than it is to use Tribute. But, you know, I like this. I think it's super cool. I like, you know, how kind of concise the items got. I like how flat the items got. I like that you have sort of some more equivalent choices here. I'm about it. So as soon as you see, okay, we're in a bad lane, right? We're playing, you know, Sivir X against Draven X. Let me just go Relic Shield. Let me just be defensive. We can farm this lane out. I can help them last hit under turret. Like, it's worth pointing out, right? Like, think about caster minions. Right? When you don't have items in bot lane and you want to last hit a caster minion, your support needs to hit the unit once, and then the AD carry can last hit it. In this case, now there is some good and some bad. If you let the turret hit it first, then the support hits it. They're just going to take the execute and take the gold. If the support hits first, then it's fine. But like, hey, the melee minion got in a weird state where like, you know, we're not going to last hit it effectively anymore. It's like, well, don't worry, I'm Janna, and whoop, it was at 1/3. I took it. I think it's good stuff. So I'm really about this. I think it's some great changes. All right, Ancient Coin's gone. No one cares. So Shurelya's Reverie gets reworked. 200 gold cheaper, more health, same CDR, same regen, has shield and heal power, has health regen, but doesn't give AP or move speed, right? Instead of Kindle Gem Aetherwhisp Fairy Charm, it's Forbidden Idol Bracer, which is, by the way, I believe the exact same build path as Redemption. So it's a Redemption fighter. It's a pretty similar cost to Redemption as well. But instead of the Redemption active, you get the Shurelya's active. And realistically, right, mana regen, shield power, health regen, and health, that's basically Redemption. So there's like a very obvious line of like, well, I'm a support and I buy these things. And I want to point out, by the way, that like, if you were a Janna who built Shurelya's Reverie, and even though you're losing 40 AP, I mean, think back to Shard of True Ice. You're gaining 60 AP when Frostfang gave you 20. So you're really getting 40 AP back anyway. So you're not even losing anything in like the real world, you know, look down the line game state. So here's the breakdown of Shurelya's. As my nose keeps itching and won't stop. The item was pretty efficient. And the item is still pretty efficient, right? It's still about 100 gold cheaper than the stats it gives. AP became health regen, and flat health became more flat health. And if you really, really don't like health, you know, it's an item that gives you some mana regen. Oh wait, is the heal shield 10? Did I troll? It's 10, not 5. Sorry. It's even more efficient than I thought. It's now absurdly efficient. I, for some reason, just didn't copy this over correctly. Yeah, this is awesome. It's very Enchanter, the item, right? Like, this is a pretty bad Zyra item. Who cares about health regen and flat health that much on Zyra? But it does mean that, you know, as a support, you're often under-leveled. Like, think about, you know, well, yeah, I'm Zyra and I'm getting attacked constantly by all these jerks. Well, you can go Bulwark against Leona, get 300 health. And then if you really need to, you can go Shurelya's and get 300 health. I mean, I'm not saying you're gonna, but like I like those tools kind of. I mean, obviously, I would just go like Leandries, right? Like those have health too. But I generally do like having flat health on support items so that they can not be one shot. I think it's good to have that as part of the stat line. And again, it's very efficient, right? It's 400 gold efficient plus the active. This is absurdly strong. But the stat line is not appealing for like Fiora. Even if you're Leona, this isn't terrible. Like you could get away with like spending this much money and it's okay on Leona. It's fine. Alistair, it's fine. All right, next up is a rework to all the Energized crit items, which I think is super cool. I like this. I actually really enjoy that there's more options. So let's think about this. Energized now stacks on top of itself, and there's 3 Energized items in the game, right? Rapid Fire, Static Shiv, and Storm Razor, so you can buy all 3 for all 3 effects. Also, it's interesting that they are trying to push Energized towards more of an upfront burst stat and less towards a sustained auto attack stat. Now, this is a buff to people with mechanics. If you can walk in between autos, you get more of this. This still hurts as much as it did before. Don't worry about it. That's still going to go down. But if you're truly AFKing on Twitch, you're getting half as many Static Shiv procs. That's pretty meaningful. But also, it means Energize always works on turrets. So that's actually a pretty big deal as well. So let's look at this. So Storm Razor gets reworked, and it gets reworked into a stat line that I wish all Zeal items had, which is less attack speed, crit, and some attack damage. I love this. Yes, let's do this more. Attack speed is already overrepresented in most AD carries itemization. What's also great is Storm Razor now fits into itemization in a clean way. All right, so Storm Razor is much more energized damage. It's a pretty big slow. It's a very short slow, but it's a big slow. But it doesn't amplify other energized, and that's okay because it's adding 120 to energized damage, and that's fine. So here we are. Here's Storm Razor before and after. It was 250 gold for the Energize. Now it's actually gold efficient. It's a lot of attack damage, a little attack speed, and a good amount of crit. This is a great item. Now it's expensive, don't get me wrong. It's 3,200 gold for this item. That is certainly costly, but it's 120. Bam. I have 120 AD. I essentially automatically sheen you on the first attack. It's a sheen that slows 75% for half a second. That's a very sharp slow. If I have something like a rapid fire cannon, I can do it at range. If I have a static shiv, I hit 7 people with it. Cool item. The biggest thing for me is that this stat line is actually buyable. Right? So if I am going IE into, let's say, Shiv, I can go Storm Razor 3rd and feel good about it. I can feel good about Storm Razor 3rd. I now have enough attack damage in my build to feel okay with Rapid Fire Cannon 4th, Rapid Fire and Shiv and whatever can be traded as needed. But having a second attack damage purchase somewhere in the build, I'm going to probably buy a Storm Razor almost every game. Now it's expensive. It is 3,200 gold, and that is a lot of money, right? That is certainly meaningful, but it's an item that I really want to buy. All right, one thing I need to look up because I think I did it wrong. Give me a second. I don't think I had the costs of the other items correct, so I'm double checking those prices right now. And indeed, I had it wrong. Okay, so we're going to update some math live real quick. So, Rapid Fire Cannon, energized damage is flattened. It also means, by the way, that you can rush things like Rapid Fire Cannon, right? I mean, I'm probably just going to rush Storm Razor in a lot of cases because this is an absurdly good first item. Doing this much damage at the very start, 120, is a huge lane winner, and like the stat line is great, right? I don't have a lot of crit chance, so I don't need IE yet. I could very easily see myself going Storm Razor IE every game. Storm Razor into IE into Rapid Fire or Shiv is probably going to be my new build path. Probably, right? I think it's true. But no longer makes Energized work on turrets because it already does, and it doesn't increase the charge rate either. So Rapid Fire Cannon is a simple Energized item that simply gives range, which makes it very specific in what it does. And I'm also glad about that. I'm glad that it has a singular purpose. It is certainly, I would say, a nerf to RFC overall. But the item was bought by everyone. It was the only Zeal item anyone ever bought outside of Phantom Dancer, so I'm about it. And so, let me do the math actually correctly for cost for these things. It was 2,600. And that makes the efficiency look a whole lot better than it was before. Same attack speed, crit, and move speed as before. The Energized is simply a little bit different. Also, not 35%. I guess, it's 35% range, sorry. Yeah, 35% range. And then we have Static Shiv for similar things. 2,600 for these costs because I'm silly. And again, look at us, 85% efficient on ship, right? So let me think about this, right? It's like, well, I have rapid fire cannon, and actually we just do this, right? There, let's update the math a little bit. We can do it here as well. Cool, right? How much of this item are you paying for the Energized effect, right? And this is, you know, I'm paying 650 for Energize and range. I'm paying 400 for Energize and lightning. I'm paying 400 for Energize and lightning. I'm paying, I'm not paying anything for Energize because the item is already efficient by itself. It's like, you look at these and you're like, oh, yeah, actually, I really do want to buy Stormrazor. Again, it cost me 600 more gold, but it's more than 600 gold worth of stats, right? It's 1,400 gold worth of stats. And a similarly strong Energize effect. Worth pointing out, Static Shiv no longer crits, but it does bounce 2 more, so it now gets the entire minion wave. I think 7 is a good number for this. It hits the entire wave, even on cannon wave. That's a good thing. Again, does 120 damage. And think about the build, right? We're going to go Stormrazor into IE, into Rapid Fire Cannon, and Static Shiv. We're going to have 360 lightning. We're going to have 360 energized damage. Now, I want to point out that an IE crit Static Shiv at max level was about 360. It was 300 and change at max level. So, it's not that different at the end of the day, but in the mid game, it's a really big deal. If I actually go Stormrazor, and I might even go Stormrazor Shiv IE, I doubt it, but there is a world where that's a possibility. And my first attack is a 7 bounce 240 energize. Oh, and by the way, I can buy Kirchay's Shard for another 80 on top. Imagine just that build, right? Where your first auto is legitimately Stormrazor, Shiv, Kirchay's Shard, and it's, 320 to 7 targets with a slow? Maybe that's just my build now. Who needs IE when you do this to people? It automatically kills caster minions already. How do you not wave clear instantly with this? This seems very strong. So, we might see very, very new builds. It's strong enough that we really might see this. We might see Energize go down to 100 damage as a result. We might see Kirchay's Shard get nerfed back down as this. We're going to see what happens. It's going to be a world. We look at the Kirchay's Shard value. Essentially, I somehow couldn't do math correctly. That's the cost of the item. There we go. There's the efficiency numbers that we were looking for. Yeah, you were paying 225 gold for Kirchay's Shard energized before. You're paying 325 for it before. But overall, it is more energized damage per gold. So it's more efficient in this version of the item. It's a 700 gold premium, which makes it line up pretty well with Crit Cloak. So that's going to line up pretty well. It's a solid mid-tier purchase. It's as much as double longsword, but it's 80 energized damage is a lot. Again, it's a lot of upfront damage, but you're not getting as much in combat. This kind of build is a very upfront build. Also, again, you have things like Static Shiv. This damage will work on turrets. So when you walk up to a turret with a Kirchay's Shard, you're doing double damage the first attack. Brawler's Glove is gone. Cloak of Agility is just going to have more crit. This means in the future, the way we calculate the cost of crit, it's going to be a cheaper stat. For the calculations today, we're using the old value of this item because that felt appropriate, that we're comparing to the world we live in right now. Zeal getting an update to have, again, more crit, as flat of attack speed as possible. Same move speed, but it has to be more expensive because it has to be, so it's Cloak plus Dagger. And so here's the efficiency before and after. It was very close. It's actually now over efficient because that's just how the pricing structure works. Generally, that's fine. Who cares? Whatever. But I want to point out that it means that you can easily cap your crit strike. As I mistype critical strike here in all the cases, it means that if you really wanted to get 100% crit chance, if you got Infinity Edge, you could theoretically go 4 Zeals or 3 Zeals, and it wouldn't even be that bad because the item is gold efficient. And this is actually a pretty overall good stat line, right? 36 attack speed, 75 crit for only 4,200 gold. Now, I think the energized effects are awesome, right? As long as you're willing to pay 650, or, better yet, 400, or better yet, hey, it's Stormrazor, hello, right? Because look at this Stormrazor. It should be out of Zeal, right? It's BF Sword, Cloak, Kirchay's Shard. Oh, it's not even out of Zeal, right? Because it's low attack speed. So it's Kirchay's, not Zeal. So if you build 3 Zeals, you can't go Stormrazor, so rip. But you can do, IE, Zeal, Cloak of Agility, and get max crit, right? There's a lot of build paths here, right? And this is like dream scenario for me. I love these sort of open-ended situations where what is my build path going to actually be? What are we actually putting together? And I don't know. There's a lot of really compelling stuff. Like, and I read these patch notes earlier in the day to build the patch rundown out, and I'm still going back and like, what do I actually want to buy? So it's super interesting, super compelling. I'm really about this. Fenrir's, of course, different build path, but same item. Shojin is gone, Zerat Portal's gone, Omreker's gone, Raptor Cloak is gone. I'm glad to see it gone. It's still an ARAM, but, it's fine. Item set editor cleanup. Well, these items were technically removed when we tried the respective modes. We're removing them from the item set creator. Thank you for getting rid of these items that cluttered up the shop. I appreciate that greatly. Thank you very much. Also, Klepto is gone, which means we're going to have to rebalance Ezreal, which I'm fine with. Klepto definitely did feel frustrating to play against. I'm not going to miss it. It's fine. So instead we have Omnistone, which is going to be interesting. It's going to periodically give you another random keystone. That's going to be a thing. It's going to be a thing. It's melee biased, right? Melee gets it every 4 seconds faster in all cases. You get a new keystone if you stay out of combat for a long time. So if you can't use it, if you just can't never get press the attack to trigger, well, go back to base, walk back to lane. It'll come out pretty soon if you've been out of combat for 40 seconds. Oh, sorry. Gain a new keystone while out of combat after 40 seconds of not using keystone. So if you can't trigger press the attack, you drop out of combat. It's like, okay, now it's grasp. And then off you go. Dark Harvest actually buffs your other keystones. That sounds exciting as heck. I am absolutely going to try Omnistone on every single champion because it just sounds fun. I'm going to play Omnistone on everybody. It's not going to be optimal, right? Because champions have optimal keystones. And getting, Grasp on Jinx or Aftershock on Jinx, not the best. Glacial Augment on Jinx, not the best. Glacial Augment on Ashe, actually useless. Literally doesn't do anything. So, reasons. But still looks fun. Gonna try it. Gonna have fun with it. Next up is Conqueror, getting a small rework, and they're basically reshaping it so it doesn't convert damage to true damage. So this is, by the way, this is a very easy math problem. It is 8% damage per 100 armor/MR of your opponent. So if you're physical damage deal like Darius, every 100 armor after your E passive, this is an 8% damage amp. Very easy to do the math right there. There you go. Healing is 15% post instead of 8% pre. This is roughly equivalent at about 100 armor or magic resist. So, nerfed against tanks, better against squishies. Also of note, max stacks has been doubled, but spell hits are doubled and melee basic attacks are doubled, so it's really the same. So for melee champions, this stacks exactly identically. The stack duration, identical for melee as well. So on your side, the functionality is unchanged if you're melee. What the output is different, right? The healing is better against squishies, worst against tanks. The damage it gives you is actually higher, because again, you're always getting double stacks. So here's the adaptive force before and after. Here is, using Aurelia as our example, here is her old AD and her new AD with max stat Conqueror. You'll notice that it is about 8% more damage. Oh, look, 8% more damage. As always, the inflection point is, do they have 100 armor or MR? If they have less, I'm better. If they have less, I'm better. If they have more, I'm worse off. So they have pushed this away from anti-tank, and about 100 armor MR was the inflection point. Okay. Now, if you're ranged, let's say you're playing Lucian, well, it's going to take you longer to get to max stacks, but keep in mind that all you get at max stacks is just the healing, right? You don't get the damage convert anymore, and the adaptive force per stack is close, and if you're ranged, it's still 8 seconds. So generally speaking, ranged Conqueror, I would say, got about as good to maybe better. I think it's close, but I think it might have gotten better overall, because you can still make this, and the thing to point out is that if you land a spell, whether you're melee or ranged, you're still getting 2. So if you're playing a spell slinger, like if you're playing Cassiopeia, Q plus 4 E's is max stacked, and you're here. If you're playing Rise, you're getting there really quickly. So for a lot of those cases, it is a better rune. So a lot of buffs here for ranged champions. I like how they handle the melee range split. It's simply auto attack based, right? More stats overall, less anti-tank. I like this reshape. I think it's a good choice. Next up is Aftershock, where it is less flat resists, but more self-scaling, more synergy. Damage dealt, twice the ratio, but lower base damage because it doesn't count your base health. So half the cooldown. So generally less resists, generally less damage, lower cooldown. All right, what's that look like? Well, we're going to use Aurelia as our example for what base health is. And she's pretty standard. Like, you're not going to see big differences here. All right, old damage to new damage, right? Quite a bit lower in the late game. I mean, 7 off, who cares in the early game? But, you know, about a quarter to about a half off. The ratio, of course, is twice as good. Here's how much bonus health you need to buff it. And realistically, this is not that hard to get. I mean, 200 HP at level 1 is reachable if you a Ruby Crystal start. But realistically, the damage only keeps up if you're Scion, right? Or you're really, really, really stacking some health. So it's, in a lot of cases, doing less damage as a rune. It's definitely worse on someone like Thresh, etc., etc. Right, what about the armor MR? Well, if your armor was 20, 30, up to... And I'm stopping at 130 because we only care about base armor. Because at bonus, we have different math. So if your base armor is between these numbers, right? Here's the old resist, here's the new resist, and you are 18 to 12% less durable. So which means roughly 18 to 12% more damage back to you. It's not exactly 1-to-1. That's not quite how math works, but it's close enough. You know, if we do like 1 over the number and we actually make it a percent, you know, we're seeing, you know, right, 20 to 13% more damage. Again, the numbers are close, right? But the scaling ratio is 60% higher, and it means you only need 100 bonus armor or 100 bonus magic resist to make up for it. Now, again, that's not trivial. That's a Thornmail and Ninja Tabby and runes, but, you know, certainly reachable. And if you're, you know, Rammus or Malphite or, you know, those kind of champs that get free bonuses. I mean, Thresh does this with armor as well. You get close pretty quickly. So it's not that bad. And again, the actual amount of damage reduction is not that much lower. And again, the cooldown is halved. Aftershock may well be stronger, even on squishies, and it's certainly stronger on tanks. All right. Next up, another really cool rune change. I like this a lot. Presence of Mind. Instead of restoring max mana and refunding ult cooldown, it restores max mana and energy, and increases max mana and energy by 500 up to 500 max mana or 50 max energy. And that is meaningful. Now, it's a really big deal for energy users, obviously, if you're looking at, you know, a Kali or whatever and getting, you know, what, from 200 to 250 max energy. That's an extra Q in a trade or an all-in. That's a really big deal. That matters a lot. That's a huge deal at, you know, only 5 takedowns. And unlike Relentless Hunter and Ingenious Hunter and Ultimate Hunter, you can do it on the same target, right? You can be 5 kills on the Fiora, not kill each champion once. So it's almost like, you know, this is a Hunter keystone. It's the same kind of idea, but it's in precision. This seems cool. Other take that I saw on Twitter was this is good for Rise or any other hard mana scaling champion because 500 mana is non-trivial. It's a big buff to Seraphs because you get, what, 3%? Which is another 15 AP, which is not nothing, right? That's basically an extra stack of Gathering Storm or whatever. That's, you know, 300 or so gold worth of stats. But again, keep in mind, unless you were actually spending your mana down to 0 reliably, the max mana doesn't much matter. And I would say frequently it didn't tend to. But, you know, once in a while we did see people run out of mana. Presence of Mind will have some value. This will be pretty solid overall. Next up, Nimbus Cloak also getting changed around. Because, yeah, Cloud Drake gives you move speed on ult cast. The Cloud Soul, I should say. Nimbus Cloak is move speed on summoner spell cast. I think it's actually kind of cooler anyway. So instead of being 100 flat move speed for 1.5 and then decaying for 1 second, it's 15 to 35 for just the full 2.5. And so I ran some math, okay? So not counting Janna, who has an absurd base move speed, 325 is the lowest, and 400 is Master Yi with Berserker's Greaves. So these are all the actually findable base move speeds in the game for regular champions. Mobies theoretically could have existed and brought this even higher, but we wanted this graph or this chart to actually be readable. So this was your move speed with Nimbus Cloak. And then if you use basically a short cooldown summoner spell, like Hex Flash, Smite, Zoe W, which has very few of them, but it's going to be often. It is weaker in most cases, but it's still 15% more. So when you're running around as Nocturne and you smite someone, enjoy your 53 bonus move speed. Still pretty good to get 53 move speed for smiting someone. It now means Red Smite has a move speed buff on it if you play Nimbus Cloak. And it means you Blue Smite someone, you're really fast. That's not bad. Okay, Flash and Teleport, right? The really long ones are the 35 speed, and they're always faster. And then we have, the rest of them, Heal, Ignite, Cleanse, etc. And that's, not quite as good as Nimbus Cloak, but, if your Mastery Wizard Greaves is as good. The really thing to point out, though, is that you will generally use, I would say, your ult about as often as both of your summoners combined, potentially. Also, I would argue that I would say that your summoners care more about move speed than your ultimate does. Like if you're flashing to engage or flashing to run away, that move speed's really useful, right? You can use this move speed at level 3 when you're all-inning in the bot lane. I could even see an Alistar flash just to get move speed to get the WQ off, right? And again, dodging ganks, setting up ganks, all that stuff, that's usable. So it turns on sooner because it's off your summoner spells. The move speed is, I would say, overall comparable, but having this is a big deal because Nimbus Cloak couldn't do that. I mean, Master, you could press R and gain some speed, but how about getting them on the red smite so you can catch them? You can smite a minion for move speed now, right? Like, it's awesome. There's some cool stuff here. It also means it's a really big buff. I'm going to say to Hex Flash. I think if you want to be a Hex Flash user, you should definitely run Nimbus Cloak because it's Hex Flash into 50% move speed for 2.5 seconds. That's great. That's absolutely great. That seems super usable, super wonderful. I'm about this. This seems like a really cool rune that I'm happy about. Sentinel has to convert AP from Spell Thieves into Adaptive Force because you can just buy the attack damage version, right? But again, I mentioned everyone else couldn't do this. Twisted Tree Line, I'm going to get the icon of the emote because I did play that map a whole lot. Essence Emporium coming back. Bug fixes. Skins. Okay. Whew. Hello, everyone. It's 1 hour and 51 minutes into the video. TLDR. Let's do this. Well, elemental rifts exist once the third Drake is selected or the second Drake dies. Drake 1, 2, and 3 are always unique, and the third Drake is the same Drake forever. Same as the map, until someone has claimed 4 total Drake kills. The map changes are pretty sweet. They're going to mean a little bit. There's alcoves on top and bottom lane. That's pretty cool. Some extra brush in the river near the buffs. That's cool. A new mechanic is Dragon Souls. The first team to kill 4 Drakes, no matter what colors they are, gets a soul. It's a Sheen/Luden's Echo. It's a Malphite Shield. It's a bunch of regen, or it's a bunch of move speed plus extra move speed on ulti, based on whatever the map state is. If it's an Infernal map, you're getting an Infernal Soul. Mountain Drake, etc., etc. Cool stuff. Looks really fun. Power seems moderate to high. Not game-winning, but a really big deal. Fighting for Drake's going to be a lot more important here. Elemental Drake buffs themselves, though, are weaker. So if you're not getting the soul, it's generally not as strong. In the case of Infernal, that's absolutely the case. One thing I will say is the Mountain Drake buff is very, very, very good. Mountain may very well be the best Drake in the game in this patch. I'm not sure, but it might be true. Drakes still spawn every 5 minutes, but the big thing to point out is that Elder Dragon spawns not at 35 minutes, but Elder Dragon spawns after someone claims the Dragon Soul, which is killing 4 Elemental Drakes. You can never have 5 Elemental Drakes, you can only ever have 4, and then Elder Dragon spawns. Elder Dragon itself essentially deals, I would argue, less burn damage overall, but has an execute if you drop someone below 20% HP. The buff also lasts longer. Baron lasts less long. Buffs look cooler. Rift Herald spawns 2 minutes earlier and can respawn. Damage is fairly close. Damage taken, or I should say overall durability, is lower. Minion XP changed by 2%. Biased towards solo lanes. It is harder to rush down turrets. Doran Shield a bit better for melee. Jungle overall, I'll just go to the chart. Overall, there's about the same amount of XP per minute in the jungle, but more gold per minute overall in the jungle. The difference being, though, you have to turbo clear because the respawn timers are shorter, and that's why the XP and gold per minute is lower. So turbo clear champions are getting more gold and the same XP. People who aren't clearing as often are going to get less gold and less XP. New lethality items getting added. Sanguine Blade works when you are alone, and you get some extra attack speed and lethality. Umbral Glaive takes the ward killing passive away from Duskblade and gets it on itself. Serrated Dirk doesn't get the 40 damage on hit. Support items. You only ever pay for tier 1 and never pay for them again. That is all you ever do. You pay once and then you buy real items. They still turn into sight stones. They still upgrade over time, but they upgrade via doing the quest, not by buying the upgrades. Overall, similar stat profiles, but anti-poaching is a lot nicer to the support. Tribute no longer deals damage, but it generates gold all the same. There are now attack damage versions of Spell Thieves. A Relic Shield no longer heals, but there's now ability power and attack damage versions of the items. And the last thing to point out is the gold generation passives go away once you reach tier 3. Ultimately, these items are a gold income buff because you're not spending as much money on these items. Overall stats delivered are about the same in the late game, but weaker in the early game. Shirelia's loses AP, gains health, loses move speed, gains shield power. Otherwise, pretty similar item. Sorry, gains health regen. Loses AP. Storm Razor is now a great item. Great stat efficiency. Wonderful. Gonna buy it a lot. Energized damage is now flattened at 120, and they stack addedly with one another, which means Rapid Fire Cannon adds energized damage, Static Shiv adds energized damage, but because that can't crit, it ends up about the same in a 4-item build. Gear Chaser are a bit more buyable, and again, it adds energized damage, so it's actually worth buying as like your second, third item as you build up. Crit is cheaper, and it comes from Cloak of Agility, but you can't buy Brawler's Gloves anymore. It means Zeal builds out of that. It means Fenderbancer changes the build path. Shoujin's gone, Zerot's gone, Omerker's gone, Raptor Cloak gone. Item set cleanup. Kleptomancy is gone. In its place is Omni Stone, which looks really cool. It gives you every keystone in the game, pretty much, and just like keeps rolling through them. It's essentially Spellbook for keystones. Conqueror is better if your opponents have less than 100 armor, and worse if your opponents have more than 100 armor. And it's better for ranged champions. Aftershock deals less damage and gives less resist unless you buy a lot of health and a lot of armor, but it's got half the cooldown, so it's a better keystone. Presence of Mind now restores mana and energy, and gives max mana and energy, which is a big change. Nimbus Cloak now works in summoner spells and looks really sweet. And that's the patch, all 2 hours of it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.